Mark Dillon, Vice President of IT, and Nova Power Corp. Mark is going to speak to improve social outcomes with predictive and proactive case management, which is exactly the kinds of things that we were talking about yesterday, and transforming the citizen engagement to enable effortless customer experience across the entire customer journey. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for making it out. I am absolutely not a morning person. I had to wake up, I don't even know what time. I left my house at 5 this morning to be here because I live in Stratford. And that's not my thing. But I still was excited to get up, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because when someone is really intrinsically motivated and attached to their work, that's one of the themes that I want to go through. It really affects how well customer service touch points are delivered. And I think that we talk about where we're going to spend the money. I think we spend the money on the people. And then the people spend their time that they're trading to us for the money on our customers. And that is going to be a large focus of what I'm going to talk about today. So a little bit about me. I work for a medium-sized utility. So we distribute the power. We like to say that we bring hot showers and cold beers to your house, and we do it as safely as we can. And if we got that right, then we can worry about the rest. So I've been working in this industry for about 15 years off and on. I've worked in, so we're what you call semi-private sector, I suppose. We're 100% municipally owned. All of the 60-ish utilities in Ontario, that is the layout, that's how we're set up. We have a fair amount of regulation overhead, and that can sometimes feel like it's going to alter your ability to be flexible with your customers, and sometimes it does. But that is the goal, is to bring the best possible customer experience, especially given to respect the fact that we are, like many public sector entities, a government-enforced monopoly. We don't have competitors, and no one's really allowed to go out and build poles and wires and invasive infrastructure. That's for us to do, so we have to be good custodians of it. I come from a deeply technical background. I started out in Y2K, and I really never let go of that. But what I've learned throughout my career is that while it's important to understand and know what's going on in the tech world, translating that and bringing that to decision-making level and translating it into business value, whether it's risk or it's opportunity, is really where it matters. And that actually ends up making even your most technical people the happiest, because they know what they're doing and why what they're doing affects a customer directly. Just curious, show of hands of people that would say they're roughly technical in the audience. Just so I know who I'm speaking to. Okay, good. Because I'm going to try not to dive too deep. It's in my nature. This is not at all technical. This is completely high level, and it's about customer touch points. Okay. Let's see if this works for me. There we go. So, I'm going to be going through a few examples of customer touch points. And there's a recent term I caught on a different speaking panel conference that I was attending, that normally in the past would have been considered a bad thing, and it's the idea of having friction within your customer process. Has anyone else heard of this recent trend? The idea is that it's intentional. It's intentional because sometimes customers actually want that. And so I have a few examples we're going to talk about. So right now we've got these two big formats, a physical book, right, and an audiobook. I listen to audiobooks all the time because I have at least an hour commute each way every day. And so I probably consume 3 or 4 full books every month just because it's the thing I do. Sometimes I take a break and do podcasts, but that's what I do. I don't read books. But if I wanted to dive into, say, a business book, like one of my favorites, which is First Break All the Rules, I can't do my notes, I can't put my little stickies inside and reference points, and so I feel like there's something lost in the experience. And when I want to share something with somebody that I know reads books, I don't want to give them an Audible credit. I want to go to a bookstore, and I want to walk in there and I'll find it and get it and give it to them, give them a physical thing. And so I think that there's a market for that, and I think that that's one type of customer touch point, and that's real time with the people that report to you, that are your team members. And so, very similar, we've got Rose, not the sauce, the restaurant you probably can't get into if you've heard of it. And then we have Uber Eats, completely the opposite. Leave it at my door. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. These are both really good examples of totally different experiences, and they both have different touch points and designs, and where you put the customer emphasis is going to be different based on which one it is. But people are willing to travel, get in line, wait, hope, buy, steal, and just to go eat at this restaurant, when they could just order from Uber Eats. You can actually go to a grocery store and buy the sauce. If you haven't had it, it's actually pretty excellent. And then, last but not least, we've got music. I'm a music fanatic. Anyone else a musician? Play anything? Piano, drums, guitar? I find a lot of good technical people. For some reason, they come from a musical background. I don't know if it's the hooking up the amps and figuring out the cables or what, but a lot of people who I end up respecting a lot as a peer. Oh, you do this instrument or you do that. Lots of conferences I go to, there's actually ad hoc bands that hook up in the basement, after the cocktail hour. That's not even really fully sanctioned by the, and a headache to the hotels, I bet. So what we have here is Spotify, which is basically the leader in the music space, right? You want to listen to a song, it'll even listen to what you like to listen to, recommend brand new bands. You don't need to go to the store. You just get this endless stream for essentially a fixed price. But on the other side is a concert. When I was younger, I got enamored with Pink Floyd, this relatively famous band. And I love the music, like Gilmore's guitar solos, absolutely crazy good. This was a Roger Waters concert in Montreal in 2012 that I was at. There were 70,000 people there. Most of them traveled for hours. They booked hotels. They went through the really intense walk to get to be part of that crowd when they could have just listened to it on Spotify. They paid thousands of dollars for this. So there's clearly a massive desire for this direct connection, this customer experience, which is really more than a customer experience. It's this relationship with whatever it is that you're working with and transacting with. And there's no reason that it has to be different in the public sector. We do have restrictions, we have financial restrictions, and we have regulatory restrictions, but I bet there were some regulatory restrictions at that concert as well. So I'm going to frame the rest of my discussion around 3 stories that are subjective, personal stories, things that I've run into, whether it was digital or in-person customer experiences, and some of the observations I've made over my career about what it's like on both sides. What is it like on the provider side, and what is it like on the customer side, and what were the ingredients that went into that? So I'm going to share a poor experience, an amazing experience, and a digital experience. So the first poor experience, which is personal to me, and remember, this is subjective. I'm not trying to say that anyone in our healthcare system isn't trying hard. In fact, I would say super underappreciated and hardest working, and completely unfair. So when I was younger, about 20 years ago, back then I didn't have a family doctor. There was a shortage back then too. It's very hard to get a doctor right now, and unless you know a family member or so forth. So I just moved. I'd moved to a city called Burlington, and moved ourselves, and I got a fairly severe splinter in my hand. And I was a programmer then, because I'd just come from doing Y2K. And so probably a week in, I'm actually having trouble typing. So I didn't have a doctor, couldn't get this thing out myself, went to the hospital. So the hospital experience comes with all of the things that we know we all dread, right? The multiple hour wait, the confusion of where you're supposed to go, the multiple waiting rooms, and then you don't want to be there anyway. Obviously, you need help, so you're in a place of vulnerability, and you're unhappy. And through whatever happenstance or circumstances, something through the administration of the local anesthetic put me into a situation where I was unconscious and had a seizure. Only one I've ever had in my life. Very strange. Now, I was never not in physical safety to the best of their ability to keep. They kept a great job at making sure that I was okay physically. But I didn't feel like a customer. And what you watch happen is, it feels like, and I've seen this in lots of public sector institutions, that both the staff and the customer are sort of victims of a system that's got feedback loops and negative checkpoints and all kinds of resourcing issues that just put both people at odds with each other. Everyone there was a good faith actor. There's a recent show that comes out. I like to watch shows a lot. It's called The Pit. Some of you will probably seen it, some of you may not have. I would recommend on this specific topic, it does a fantastic job of illustrating why what I just talked about can and does happen regardless. And so it's kind of like 24. It's a single day in a season of a hospital where each episode is an hour, and they are busy. If you did that at an office, it'd be boring. So what do we see when I'm watching this? I've got, my family's a family of nurses, so multiple nurses in my family. So, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I hear all about it, especially during COVID, because they don't have control, they don't have agency to do things that they might think is right. Partly because of safety and control. It's super paramount that no mistakes happen. But at the same time, there's so much resource constraints, there's overwork and burnout. People are in this industry because they really, really care. And they feel hopeless, they can't meet the demand, and they have to start to sacrifice things. The things are, do I do what's best for the business, or do I do what's best for the customer? And then the thing they don't even think about is what's best for me. They always sacrifice that until they're to the point where they're completely disengaged and they either leave or they check out and stay, which is worse, right? And the thing that does that to them is that no matter how hard they try, no amount of effort's good enough. You never go home at the end of the day and feel like you completed your job. And this isn't just in something as extreme as a hospital. This happens in everyday work offices. We can build this into our year by accident, by overcommitting to projects, by mismanaging change management, by having improper prioritization, by having favorites and working departmentally instead of working with a central planning group. And so what does it look like for the customer? They're frustrated, they're confused, long wait times, and you hope for this is just good enough. You don't walk away saying, wow, that was an amazing experience. Now, I'm not saying that's never happened, but on average, because of the other constraints, because the people on the other side are just run to their wits' end and overtasked, everything about it feels like, I can't wait till this is over. On the flip side, I'm going to tell you about an absolutely amazing experience I had recently. So this is a picture of the San Diego Hilton. I was there for a conference a few years ago. Beautiful location. Has anyone been to San Diego? Isn't it just so beautiful, and everything's super expensive, so I couldn't afford to live there. But it is a really nice place. If you ever get a chance to visit, I would highly recommend it. So I was there for a conference for 1 week. And what happened was, something through the booking, they'd made a mistake with, let's say, 24 people that were going to this conference. This conference is big. It fills the place that Comic-Con happens at, which is just incredibly massive. There would be, let's say, 50 simultaneous talks happening every hour on the hour, and a conference show trade center that's maybe, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think it's over 1 kilometer long. So what happened with Hilton, and I didn't really have any strong opinions about any hotel brands, is they overbooked. So I find out 3 days before I go there that they don't have a spot for me in the conference center hotel that's right across the street from the Metro Convention Center that I need to be going to. And instead they're putting me somewhere else. So I'm frustrated and I'm annoyed. Hilton's brand has gone down in my mind. The next thing that happens is I show up, I get a cab to my 40 minutes away from where I'm supposed to be every day, which is where I'm supposed to be staying for the next 3 days. They tell me in the last 2 days I can move back to the proper one. And so I'm pretty annoyed, right? Because I'm going to have to get up an hour early, etc. Why did this happen? I still have my confirmation. They're telling me they're not going to honor it. And then I get to where they're going to send me to, and that's a picture from our balcony. So what they did was for all the people they made the mistake with, they booked a different hotel that I don't even think was in their brand, and they sent you there, they got you a suite. It was a resort. And when I got to the hotel, they had pre-checked me in, and they had the concierge come and talk to me, apologize for the mix-up, ask me if I needed anything, and inform me that whenever I want, no matter where I am during those 3 days, I can call a taxi and it'll always be free. So okay, now I'm like, all right, you've done right by me. That's really good. You've taken the time to do that. And the touch point where this handoff stuff was happening, it wasn't an email or a phone call from some central office. It was the reception desk that I showed up at. And I could tell that they were empowered to do what they needed to do to make their customer feel right without having to go up through a bunch of levels of approvals and check back and forth. Obviously, there'd be some kind of boundaries. And then when I finally did get back to the actual Hilton where I was supposed to be, that's the rooftop pool, which is beautiful. There inside my room, waiting for me, was a letter, a basket of fruit, apology from the manager of that building, and then they came up and chatted with us and said, there's anything we can do. So what was absolutely frustrating and looked like it was going to be, a big pain, turned out to be a super positive experience, and they flipped it around by really focusing on the endpoint. And this is not just doing this for me. This also isn't like, I know that's a nice looking rooftop, but this is not like a ritzy place. It's a regular Hilton. They did not have to go above and beyond like that. They could have just said, tough, go to your other place, we're done. So, again, to my TV show thing, there is a recent award-winning show called The Bear, which may be more obscure, so maybe lots of you haven't seen it. But the reason I'm using it as an example is there's a specific episode in it, if you ever care to watch it, called Forks. And inside that episode, they walk through the opposite of the negative experience. They walk through what the ingredients are to creating an amazing customer experience. And so what happens with that Hilton experience, right? If you're involved in that supply chain of delivering to someone that your company made a mistake with, rather than having to brush them off and tell them it's policy, you're helping them out. You're proud of what you're doing. So the work matters. The work feels like it's worth it. It's possible to do your best work, to feel like you're doing your best work. And then the work isn't work. It still takes up your day. You're still not at home watching The Bear, but it's completely different. I don't know if any of you have worked in a place before that feels like this, or a place that feels like you aren't empowered to actually help your customer. If there's things in the way that aren't in your control, that you think are wrong, but somehow the system has colluded to make this the way that you're delivering your service. And what does it feel like to the customer? I felt cared for. I had a fantastic experience. I'm here bragging to you about Hilton now because of this. The time was worth it, and the cost was worth it. So when you go and have a meaningful experience and everything just feels like it's working without any hassles, you walk away from that and think, wow, that was incredible, that was amazing. I'm telling my friends about it, I can't wait to go again. And the people that delivered that to you feel just as good. Perhaps it didn't click. There we go. This is a relatively older concept that I thought was worth throwing in here. There's lots of Venn diagrams like this, but this one called Ikigai is my favorite. And it's the idea that if you can do something you're good at, get paid for, and that you also love, and that your customers and the world needs from you, that it's almost like entering a state of flow. You get into this place where the work is effortless, and you really enjoy it because you know how to do it, you're good at it, you're getting paid for it, so you don't feel underappreciated. You love doing it, so you do it for free, and the world needs it. So if anyone had a dream job, so my dream job was to be a film composer. Originally, that's what I wanted to do. When I was a kid, I got into video game music, I got obsessed with it, I learned how to create it and code it, and then I started thinking, well, let's look what this career path looks like. I have friends that went down that way, and I would say probably for me it wasn't the right place to go professionally. I still write music for free, but if I was able to get paid for it and love it and people needed it, that would have been amazing. And so if you can find that path in your career, and you can find a company or your own company that lets you operate that way, it is so life-changing just on a personal level, and it's also better for the customers you're serving directly. The reason I'm going on about this is because it's possible to make it so that the people in our teams can start operating this way. And it doesn't matter where your organization is. I've seen it on both sides and both extremes. So I mentioned this book earlier because there's something in it that I always use when I started a new company. So First Break All the Rules it's an older book. It's from the 90s. It's a business book from then. It got very popular. It was published by Gallup. Gallup's a research company. And they created something called the Gallup Q12, which probably all of you have heard of. But I want to actually walk through it. So the first four, I think, are the most important. And the way that it frames it out is do these in groups, because you can't start with like the coolest top ones. These basics need to happen first because they're structurally important. So you ask your staff, or you ask your employees, or ask your friends, do you know what's expected of you at work? You'd be surprised how many people actually say, I don't know really. I don't really know what the actual expectations of me. I show up and I'm not getting in trouble. So now that you know what's expected of you, hopefully, which again, it's been sometimes like 20% of people feel confident enough to say, yeah, it's like these top four things. So let's say I work at an IT help desk. I come in and I got to make sure that when the support comes in, then I triage it, or you're at a call center, same flow. Call comes in, I got to do roughly these calls a day. Some call centers are very regimented. They have like average talk time and, queue time, wait time, and things like that in between. Wrap time, all those kinds of things. I worked at a call center when I was in college. And so that can actually be a positive experience if you know what's expected of you. But then the next thing is, do you have the materials and the tools and the knowledge to actually do that thing? Because when you're expected to do something that you can't do or you're missing the tools on, that's super frustrating. And then now we start to get into the good stuff. So you've got those two things. At work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? Imagine saying yes to that. And then in the last 7 days, have you received recognition or praise for doing good work, from someone who noticed it? And I don't mean just like, hey, great job. It has to be specific. When you catch someone doing something great, you have to tell them that you noticed it. It has to be something that you know they think was significant. And then they're going to care. It's going to mean so much more than great job last week. So the next four gets even more aspirational. And by the way, this is designed to be a survey to measure the maturity and health of a business. So you give it out to your employees, and if someone says yes to all of them, incredible workplace. And it's possible. So does your supervisor or someone at work seem to care about you as a person? Not just someone in the company, but actually care about you as a person. Is there someone who encourages you to develop yourself, who makes space for it, gives you time for it, says, hey, have you tried this? At work, does your opinion seem to count? Are you listened to? Not just listened to, but heard. Do you walk away from conflicts with your peers or meetings with your managers and say, okay, I get it. We may not totally agree and want to do this thing, but I can get on board because I felt heard and they understood me. And does the mission of your company make you feel important? If you were an outsider, would you say, I'd be proud to work there? And the last group is, do your peers also appear to be committed to doing quality work? Because when they aren't, when you're in a group of people, your lowest performer, your lowest effort is usually the bar for what's acceptable in the group, and that can drag groups down. And that may not be that person's fault, but it's something we can do some things about to bring them out of it. Do you have a best friend at work? Because when you enter that work isn't work phase, it becomes part of your social fabric. It doesn't mean that it's your family and you have to live there and tricks that companies sometimes use like that to make you overwork yourself. It's that you genuinely feel that way, not that you were told it. In the last 6 months, has someone talked to you about your progress? And in the last year, did you have an opportunity to learn and truly grow? So I focus on this because I don't think that any one of these isn't something you want someone to say yes to. You want everyone to say yes to this, right? Every single one of these questions. And it feels impossible, but if you just start by making sure that everyone sits down with everybody and says, so everyone will say, oh, my job description's wrong, I did this and that. Okay, you don't need to necessarily write a whole new job description. You can just sit down and say, here is what's expected of you. That could just be, do that, wait a month, then say, okay. Now, how was that? Do you think that's actually what's expected of you? Do you think your job really requires those things, or should we, change expectations a bit? All right, now we've hammered that out. Do you have what you need? Do you need more training? Do you need more tools? Are the technology not good? All those kinds of questions. and just work your way through it, and you can get there. And you could read the book, but honestly, this list is really the only thing to me that matters in the book. It talks about strategies, but it's the list, which is publicly available on the internet, which is why I'm allowed to show it here. So these things here are hard, and you don't have time to do them because it deviates from your work, and it requires conflict of interpersonal conversation, because if you had to sit down with a peer or someone that reports to you that isn't committed to doing good work, no one wants to do that. That's not fun. It's easier to say, you know what, good enough. They're not really causing any problems. Let's just leave this alone. That's actually, I think, the worst thing that you can do. So that's why doing this takes courage, because you also have to grant autonomy and authority to do the best work, like what I talked about at the Hilton or the other resort I was at, where someone was helping me out with, I could tell they had agency to do it. I could tell they were making offers that were dynamic, and it made me feel super appreciated. But if they were told, here's the very prescriptive way, and here's the thing you're going to read to Mark when he shows up, they're not going to care. They're not going to own the process, because it's not their process. It's being dictated to them by somebody else. So you want to give as much authority as possible to the person that controls the customer experience. And that's scary. But it makes us move away from treating people, let's say, for example, in a customer service department, like a commodity that's interchangeable and sizable, to actually real systems, because in a way people are systems that interact with the customer. And you want to give them as much smarts and agency and ability to make decisions where the rules don't fit. We had, at our utility, we actually were braced for having a very poor fiscal year, the year of COVID. We're thinking, okay, everyone's moved away from all of their buildings. We have the University of Waterloo. It's totally empty. It's our biggest customer. We're worried about loss of revenue. We've got people who've lost their jobs, people who are on the government assistance now. Maybe they're not going to pay their bills. So what we did was we sat down with our customer service department, and we gave them a list of, okay, here's all the decisions you're allowed to make without talking to anybody. You can make payment arrangements that are well beyond what we're normally okay with. You can have whatever, use your best judgment. If it gets to a certain threshold, just come talk to us. That worked so well, we had almost no bad debt. Everyone ended up paying their bill. Didn't happen on the same timeline it normally would. We had very few retailers go out of business because we weren't telling them, pay your power bill or make payroll. We were saying, if it's really making payroll, we're going to leave you alone for a bit. We'll figure it out next year. And just as true with these experiences that I've talked about, which are very, what we would call high friction, very much, you're talking to me, I'm there with you because you've come to a store or what have you, there's the digital equivalent to this. So I want to tell you about the best digital experience that I've ever had, and if I wasn't so impressed, it would have scared me. So when the iPhone first came out, I was early adopter. Back then, I'm still a system developer, and I'm really into tech. And there was nothing like it. When the 3G got to Canada, it was like life-changing. That was before there was any laws about driving. I remember driving home the first day and thinking, oh my God, this thing's going to kill me. So then I got the app where, I don't know if anyone remembers, there was an app where you could have the camera, and then it would make the whole screen translucent. So you could hold it up while you're driving, and you could see the road still while you're texting. No laws about it back then. But the point was, it was that big a deal that I remember walking in Toronto one day, and I was at an intersection, and I pressed the Google Maps, like, where am I button, and it zooms down and spins, and it's got building heights and streets location and where I'm turned at, and I'm thinking, why am I not more impressed by this? Because that was, back then, incredible. So Apple became a little more customer controlling. They started to remove agency and autonomy, and I got annoyed with it. So I went to a Android, back then it was called Nexus. It was Nexus 5 is that phone there. And I use that example because I was flying to Vancouver to visit my friend in December, and I had to get to Pearson at a certain time, and so I have my alarm set. And my phone alarm goes off, and I pick it up, and it says on it, based on an accident on the 401, we've adjusted your alarm, and you need to leave now. And I'm thinking, what is happening here? I didn't even have the flight in my calendar. I didn't schedule anything. It wasn't how I did things back then. But there was a lot less concern, or at least action, on privacy protection at that time. And Google had been reading my emails, which they still are. They just don't help you out anymore. So they've gone through, they know I have a flight, they know it's at a Pearson, they know when it takes off, and they know that it's going to take me longer, and they intuited that I must set the alarm to get up. So because of that, I was one of the very few people that got to the airport at all, and on a 797, I got upgraded to first class, which is the only time I've ever flown first class on a plane like that. It was amazing. But how did that happen? And I think it's because when you have tech companies that are starting out, or anyone's doing any kind of digital customer experience thing for the first time, they start it in the group of the people who are the potential consumers and the tech people themselves. And then we grow out and we build systems and bureaucracy. Not that we don't need those things, but you don't get that kind of innovation without allowing freedom for the individual contributors. So here are some mainstays that I've built into whatever I'm doing, wherever I go. I conduct staying interviews. So that means you sit a person down who's good and doesn't need performance management and say, what do you think you're doing in 5 years? Because if it's in a different company, I'll support that. If it's in a different skill set, we'll buy you the training while you're here. I'd rather have them leave for a good reason. I'd rather have them transfer to a different department than out of our company entirely. So back to spending the money. Feed them. It doesn't need to be a huge sticking point. Work it into your budget. Work it into your projects. Make sure you have milestone celebrations. Bring in lunch. If you see someone working late, say, hey, do you want me to go give you a sub? I know everyone wants to do that, but make it as part of your program. Don't pay out of your own pocket, as you may be encouraged to in some public sectors, because that builds loyalty to you, the boss, or you, the teammate, and not to the company. And then when you leave, the whole culture changes. You want to build it so that if you leave, not much changes. Public praise, private criticism. It's tempting to contradict someone, but always, always make sure you do private criticism, which people are mostly good at, but remember the public praise part. When you catch someone doing something good, if you know they're comfortable with it, do it publicly. This is the hardest one for people moving up. You set the why. Here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing this. Then you state the what. So here's what I want, and then you get out of the way. So let's say I'm in a municipality and I get a question from council, which I did a couple jobs ago, and they say, what if we had Wi-Fi downtown? What would that look like? I would go to my team and say, we want to have Wi-Fi downtown, and we think we want to do these like 3 blocks, and that's it. And as a technology person, I want to be in there. I want to be talking about the RF and what vendors we're using and all that stuff, but that completely means that no one gets to own it. So the how needs to be left alone to the actual person who's contributing. There's a great talk from years ago that Simon Sinek did on this called What, Why, How. I think he even wrote a book about it. Normalize dangerous autonomy. And that sounds scary, but the alternative is dangerous dependence, to the point where every decision is up and down 5 in the ladder, no one knows how to do anything, and people aren't even doing due diligence on their own work or customer interactions because they know someone else is going to catch them later on because they don't really have the authority to deliver it anyway, so why do a good job on draft 1 of 50? This one's important. Outsourcing volume instead of breadth. It's tempting to outsource entire functions, and then no one in your team, we see this a lot with Shadow IT a while ago. Maybe you're getting a new HR system, HR department goes and gets it, doesn't involve IT at all. IT has no knowledge of how it works. They are going to resent that system, whether they try to or not, and then when it breaks, they're going to be asked to fix it. So I get that your internal team is a bottleneck, obviously, with whatever it is, whether it's your marketing team or your communications team or your IT team, but don't outsource the entirety of a thing of understanding, because then you don't have internal knowledge anymore. And then being available and make the time for it, you can really only do that if you follow number 4, where you get out of the way. Because one of the standard mantras I would use is only do the work that only you can do. Because no one else can do that work. And so you're holding everybody up. So if I've got to make policy decisions as a VP of IT, but we just ordered a new server, and I'm super excited. Now I want to rack that server. I want to be part of that because it just arrived, and new gear's like Christmas. That's not my job. Doesn't mean I don't get to play in the sandbox. I just need to get my other stuff done first. I need to get that decision done first. Then I can go and observe and play and be like, okay, this is cool. And it's good to do practical work with your teams because they see you're not above it, they see you're interested, and they know that their work is understood because you're demonstrating you understand the work. But first you have to do the stuff that you're in the way of, which is the stuff that only you can do. And then that helps free up time, which makes you available. So this is my last slide here. It's a little bit about Nova Power. So we're the 7th largest utility in Ontario, and we have a huge territory of 1,100 kilometers. We have 164, I think it's 167,000 customers now. We've actually grown a bit in recent history. And we are a merger of Waterloo and Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro that happened in 2022. So we're still going through the merger. So if anyone has merger questions, I'm happy to answer those later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I mean, don't go too far. They might have some questions before you leave the stage.
Okay. I thought we were out of time, so.
No, that's okay. I'll squeeze you in. I'll squeeze you
Okay.
in. I'm here to serve for the people.
I ran right to the
I'm
wire.
here to serve the people. You said you weren't a morning person, but you did really good this morning. Thank you very much. Any questions? I guess I had one. Oh, there is one question up
Okay.
front here. Thank you, sir. My mics are coming.
Hi, thank you. So when you implement, I know you have a lot of like self-serve tools.
Mhm.
You talked about like the self-serve versus the in-person experience.
Right.
And so do you have any idea of like the percentage or the number of your customers who still need, for various reasons, that in-person experience? Like when we roll out applications, sometimes our accessibility teams are concerned that we're like removing accessibility for some special groups or equity deserving groups who need that. And so do you have any idea of like how many of your customers still require sort of in-person as opposed to like online bill payments or making accounts, or people who don't necessarily want to interact that way or can't?
Yeah, I do. I have some estimated numbers based on recent data. This is something we track as part of our overall company KPIs. Obviously, one of the incentives is not paying Canada Post, but there's other incentives as well as sort of speed and ease. And there's a section of our customers that, like, they'd have to be really mad to call us. They'd just rather not have to deal with that direct interaction at all. So we have about 30% of our customers right now that are self-servicing in pretty much every way, which is less than half. And I think obviously we would like to move higher than that, but there's really not a huge incentive for us because we have a philosophy that I'm so happy that we have, and that even after we merge, both our offices are still open every day. We have customer service staff so you can walk in and talk to them, because I think sometimes you want that. And honestly, if I had a problem, I'm the kind of customer who's like, if I'm not calling you, it's not happening. Just forget it. Like if I can't order pizza online, I'm not ordering pizza. It's just not happening. But if I've got a real problem, I'd rather drive into the office and talk to a person if I can't find it through some digital way. So that might alleviate some of the accessibility concerns. We're still very public-facing. You can walk in to our office, don't need an appointment during our business hours, and we always have staff there. And that's something that technology can't replace, I don't think.
Any other questions? I think you left us with a really good item right at the end there. Some things technology just can't replace. And yesterday we had a theme around the human factor, and you spoke to that a lot. Especially, I really took back the idea about spend the money on the people. Because we started yesterday talking about talent growth and talent management in this field and really getting the right skill set to manage it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you.